Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. My name is Ross Benjamin, and like every Monday, I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. Today's our college basketball betting edition, but we're going to start the show by talking a little bit about what we saw this weekend in the world of college basketball and specifically into the NFL. Doug, first of all, I would be remiss not to bring you up and say I heard through the grapevine, somebody had a great weekend.
I did. It was wonderful, Ross. It was one of those that, and it's one of those things where almost everything was, not easy, but relatively easy in a lot of cases. So, and just one of those things. So, excuse me, 6-1 or 6-0 on Saturday.
Wow.
Followed up yesterday, 3-1. Big play winners all the way around. I mentioned on the show Thursday that NFL underdogs in the wild card round are good bets. Well, underdogs went 4 out of 5 so far as we do this show, and I had two of them. I had the New York Giants and the Jaguars. Was the Jaguars lucky? Of course it was. Okay, but you know what? They came back, and got it done, and thanks. It probably could only happen against the Chargers. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what you say there. So that was great. But that's just been part of a run. Okay, the last 8 days, 24-7, 77+%, up
Nice.
over $5,500 in profit for
Wow.
how Docs does their units. So that aspect of it has been great, and everything has, when you do that, as you know, Ross, everything hits. And so it's just been going really well, and just got into a nice little zone, and see if we can keep it going.
Absolutely. And, when you get hot, those kind of breaks work out for you. Not bad weekend myself, Doug. Not quite as good as you. I did, and I didn't go 6-0 on Saturday, but I went 5-1. So
There you go.
yeah, great weekend for the good guys. And then
Yes.
yesterday 1-1. I had the Giants and Minnesota game over, which, by the way, folks, I gave out as a free pick on this channel earlier in the week, and I decided to go with that as a pay selection. I fell with Buffalo yesterday. Boy, oh boy. That's 3 games against Miami. They've outgained them by about 200 yards on each occasion, or close to it, decisively. Let's put it that way, right?
Right.
We discussed this off here. And like you said, Buffalo beat themselves in terms of the point spread.
Right.
And again, Doug, you did an article on this earlier today, as I
Yep.
recall, and you had mentioned, and I'll let you. I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell the folks a little bit about what you wrote in terms of Buffalo and the
Well,
NFL.
I mean, I mentioned I wrote so many things. I actually probably even forgot. If I don't mention it, let me know what I said. I mean, like I said, they beat themselves. That was certainly the case. Josh Allen to me looks like he's off. I think that his mistakes. He had 3 turnovers. Yes, one of them was a great defensive play, but he didn't put the ball away. One was a drop pass, that just
Yeah,
happened to. But he put too much steam on the ball at the same time. Hey, everybody's going to make mistakes. Obviously, you and I know that, Ross,
yeah,
doing this. But the some of the throws weren't there. Some of the velocity seemed off. From that standpoint, and that defense. I don't know. I mean, I look at this team and I say, as typically, if a team goes to the Super Bowl or wins the Super Bowl, they have kind of like one off game, okay, to where they win, but they're not impressive. And is that Buffalo's, or are these Josh Allen miscues? Because this isn't the first game now that this has been going on. We're on a streak of 3 games where we've seen this now. Is this continue? Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I don't have the answer to it. You wouldn't think so. But now talk about having to step up to the plate. Cincinnati Bengals, who didn't look great either, by the way. But somebody, I mean, that's a tough assignment. And for Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl and to win a Super Bowl, they're going to play 3 tough games going forward.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they're made of and how it goes, from that standpoint. But there was some other great stuff then too. You got any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of their defense, I wouldn't overreact to the 31 points allowed. I mean, one of the touchdowns Miami scored on defense.
Right.
Then you also had you had one interception that was returned inside the 50 of Buffalo. You had another interception in Buffalo's territory, meaning Miami intercepted him. So they had a couple, and then you had a punt return that went to the Buffalo 40, which is really uncharacteristic of their special teams. So, look, Miami only had a little over 200 yards or 240 yards, whatever they had. It was a low number. So very rarely do you see a team score 31 points if they don't at least get 300 yards. And that was the case yesterday because there was short fields via turnovers, a punt return, and a defensive touchdown. So I wouldn't overreact to that. In terms of Josh Allen, being close to the situation here, I agree with you, Doug. I mean, it's becoming a little bit concerning, on the sack that was returned, with sack fumble that was returned for a touchdown. Yeah, he couldn't do much about the sack, but he was trying to spin out of it, and it keeps happening. There was a couple instances yesterday that really, really was concerning because he holds the ball so loosely, and he got lucky on a couple occasions to not fumble as a result. So, the thing with Josh Allen, it's high risk and high reward at the same time. And so if you follow that team enough, I can only speak for myself. I'm willing to accept that he's going to make those types of mistakes on occasion because he's trying to make a play that other quarterbacks aren't capable of doing. But at this time of year, you should, and he should be coached up to say, hey, Josh, we know your capability, but at this time of year, you have to really take calculated risks as opposed to just risk in general. Does that make sense, Doug?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's a fine line to walk it too. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want to take away his aggressiveness,
Yes.
from that standpoint. But at the same time, you know what? I mean, these games. I mean, this is one and done now. This
Yeah.
isn't. Well, we play next week.
Yeah.
If we do that, unless you're playing the Chargers, because I mean, who else could have a 27
Yeah.
point lead and not have a turnover after that? I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, the 5-0 turnover thing, that's amazing on itself. But to have a 27-point lead and you don't commit a turnover and you still lose the game,
Yeah.
amazing. And Twitter
Yes.
was great all weekend, by the way. If you follow the Chargers, it talk about an entertainment value, Ross. It was all unto itself.
And a lot of it had to do with Staley being fired. And you know what? You can't fault the fan base for feeling that way because as we recall, the Chargers were in prime position to make the playoffs last year until a couple of his boneheaded decisions. Sometimes there's a fine line between aggressiveness and arrogance. And I think sometimes Staley thinks he's smarter than everybody else when he takes risks, and didn't do as much this year. But to lose that game is unforgivable. I mean, and like you said, they weren't like Miami scored 31 points, and we touched upon the short fields and the turnovers
Right.
and the punt return, but that wasn't the case with the Chargers. They looked absolutely dominant for 3/4 of the first half until the last drive of the first half, and then all of a sudden they couldn't stop Jacksonville. And it's just too much of that's been happening with the Chargers over the last few seasons, specifically under Staley's regime. And I'm just wondering if the culture needs to be changed there, Doug, because it's almost like a defeatist attitude. The body language I saw, and I'm interested to hear your take, it's when things started to go south, it was almost like a here we go again mentality. How are we going to find a way to blow or lose this game? So
yeah, I mean the two things that there's a number of things I thought of. I mean, one of them was I mean Justin Herbert. There's no questioning his ability, but when these things don't go the right way, you don't see him bringing it back a lot of times.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not capable of plugging the hole, okay, so to speak, in that case. So that starts to come up a little bit. I myself, one of the first things I saw when they got it to 27-20, I think it was, is Just think if they had Mike Williams,
Yeah.
okay, for that offense, another receiver, okay, and a guy that's dependable. They could get the ball. And why wasn't he there? Because, injuries can happen at any time. But if he didn't play the week before, he wouldn't have been injured. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. So that was another thing.
And that game meant nothing, right, Doug? They were already
It meant
locked
nothing. No,
in
it
for
was
the
already
number
decided.
5. Yeah. Yeah.
They were the 5th seed.
Yeah.
Done deal.
And a similar type of effort against Denver in the regular season finale. They played their starters. And
right.
They still lost the game and made a Denver offense that's been absolutely anemic all year look special, which is hard to do.
Right.
So, yeah, and the Giants come through with a win over Minnesota. Great effort by the G-men. And, you've been saying it all year specifically. And Doug is one of the NFC North. He knows the NFC North very good. He's been following it since he's been a kid. And he said it time and time again throughout the course of the year, indicating that well before it became public knowledge that Minnesota was a possible fraud, he kept pointing out the point per game differential. And lo and behold, you look prophetic, Doug.
Well, I don't know if I was the only one saying it, but the fact of the matter is, and they're just how the Giants started the game. The Giants went into that game knowing they could win, and it was very evident. Right. Minnesota took the ball, goes right down the field. Okay. Crowd's going crazy. The horns going off, all that stuff. What the Giants do, they get the ball and go right back. And when they did that, they told Minnesota right there, we don't fear your defense. We think we can take away Jefferson, okay, which a lot of teams, by the way, started to do in the second half of the year, okay, from that standpoint. And that changes their offense. Yeah. Okay. Their offensive line isn't great. Cook, had 60 yards rushing, I think, yesterday. It just all adds up. And finally it happened. And of course, you can never beat a 4th and 8 call where you throw the ball 3 yards. Okay. to end the game.
That was head scratching. If anything, and the guy was plastered to him, I guess you could count on somebody beating a defender one-on-one, but it's your tight end. Even though Hawkinson's a good one, that's not, you don't expect your tight end to win a one-on-one battle unless he's an extremely athletic tight end like a Travis Kelce.
You got to throw the ball past the line of scrimmage. You might get a holding call or something. Yeah. So to not even throw it past the line of scrimmage, but we've talked about that all year. So all right, hey, I think I think it's time, Ross, we get to some free plays.
All right, college basketball.
I think people are anxious to hear what we got to say this week.
I would hope they would be. Because we're both red hot right now. All right, we're going to be taking a look at the Penn State and Wisconsin game, which I will be covering. Doug is going to look at Tennessee and Mississippi State. And Doug, I'll let you take it away.
All right. And before I start, I got to give you a real quick story. This goes back several years. Good friend of mine used to live in Knoxville, told me this a long time ago. So Kentucky, most people, I don't know if you know, you'd have to be kind of from that region. Kentucky and Tennessee hate each other. The people hate each other across the board, everything. So when they built Rupp Arena, okay, so it was, like one of the biggest arenas at the time, and it was a really big deal. And Tennessee was playing kind of a crappy place at the time, not much of a basketball program at the time. So then somebody, a statesperson, state representative, brought up the idea of building an arena that, for a new arena. And it had been turned down for years. Well, this time he brought it up to make it bigger than Rupp Arena. It was passed by 95%. So that's my story, but how Tennessee.
It just shows you how much people hate each other on both.
So, all right, so let's get to it. Number 9, Tennessee. They got a rematch with Mississippi State. They just played. Game's going to be on Tuesday. They just played 2 weeks ago, and in Knoxville, and the Vols just pounded the Bulldogs 87-53 as 10-point home favorites. That game was over early and often because Tennessee went off to a 16-0 lead, and that was it. So Mississippi State's going to have the revenge, angle from that standpoint, and they're going to be home. Chris Jans, who, by the way, I think is a very good coach and has potential to be a very good coach, former Ohio State player. His team started 11-1, and they actually had even a solid win against a good Marquette team. But since then, since the start of SEC play, 1-4 straight up, 2-3 against the spread, and the offense is not doing the job. 59.4 points per game for this team. Now, Tennessee was unbeaten going into last Saturday's game against Kentucky and looked like they should win that one, 11-point favorites. But they was clearly evident, and it was just another example, okay, of the Tennessee coach, Rick, not
Rick
Rod,
Barnes.
can't think,
Yeah.
Rick Barnes, okay? Another game that you expect Tennessee to win, and they don't. That happens with Rick Barnes all the time if anybody follows college basketball. And that one, not only did they lose, but they were out rebounded by 20, okay,
Wow.
in that one. So what do we got going today? Well, our lines just came out just before Ross and I started doing this. And so what we found is Tennessee is a 6.5-point favorite with a total of only 125. So this sounds to me like this is going to be a grinder. Both teams defensively, they do force turnovers. I think we're going to see a lot of that. I expect the Bulldogs to actually keep it close, Ross, in the first half. But eventually, I think Tennessee defense will put the squeeze on them. They'll start missing more and more shots. Tennessee also have a better ability to get the ball in the paint in order to score. And here's a key stat from a spread standpoint. Mississippi State shoots 61.1% from the free throw line. That's a bad number.
That's
so
horrible.
If you're missing free throws during the course of the game and you don't cover a spread by a point or two, okay, if you're backing them, that's a problem. Okay, so 61.1%. Keep that in mind. And then also the fact that in Starksville, Tennessee is 10-5 and 11-4 against the spread in their last 15 trips. I'm going to give the 6.5 with Tennessee, Ross, and I think they're going to get the job done down in Mississippi State or against Mississippi State.
Yes. Tennessee minus 6.5 against Mississippi State on Tuesday. That is, folks. We're recording on Monday, Tuesday the 16th. And that game's on ESPN2, as I recall.
That is exactly correct.
There you go. Once in a while, that happens. I'm going to look at Penn State and Wisconsin, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you get the Big Ten Network, you'll be able to watch that game. In any event, you don't have to watch games to win. Okay, it's always nice, but if it, again, people who invest money in the stock market aren't watching every second of the stock market. They wake up in the morning for the most part and check out where they're at. Same thing when it comes to sports betting. Wisconsin traditionally, and Doug could speak to this more than I could, it has a very strong home court advantage. However, it's sort of dissipated in my mind over the last couple of years, Doug. I mean, even this year, you look, they're 6-2 at home.
Yep.
A lot of teams would like to be 6-2 at home, but their two losses, you lose to Wake Forest and Michigan State. Neither one of those teams are ranked right now. So it's not like they're unbeatable at home like they used to. And that's why this line jumped out at me. When you see Wisconsin as just a small favorite at home, and again, they're playing a Penn State team that's not ranked right now either, as I recall. However, you look at Penn State, and there's a lot to like about this team. Number one, according to KenPom, this is where I'm getting the statistics from. And if you don't follow KenPom and you're betting on college basketball, you need to put that in your back pocket because it's an essential part of my handicapping. And I think Doug looks at that as well. Okay, we don't put 100% emphasis in it, but it's certainly their analytics are second to none. And Penn State right now is the number one experienced team in the country. Going on the road in a winnable game, you have to account for that. They're number one in the nation with the least amount of turnovers. The Nittany Lions only turn the ball over 12.8% of their offensive possessions. So they're very good. They don't beat themselves in that regard. They're number 8 in the country in three-point shooting at 39.5%. As we have said on many occasions when discussing college basketball, the number one ingredient for an underdog in college basketball is their ability to knock down three-point shots. It's what we call the great equalizer. And they certainly qualify in that regard. And then you look at their free throw percentage. They're 77.9% from the free throw line on the year. Some NBA teams aren't that good. Seriously, if you look at the statistics, they're better than probably a handful of NBA teams when it comes to that. So as Doug was alluding to in the Mississippi State and Tennessee game, you have to account for that. Mississippi State, like you said, 61.9%. You're leaving a lot of points on the table. Penn State doesn't do that. And then Wisconsin, it doesn't come into this game exactly red hot. They've lost their last three, and their last performance on Saturday against Indiana was absolutely atrocious. I mean, they scored 45 points in that game. So I'm going to go with Penn State here, Doug. I'm going to take Penn State plus the 2.5 at Wisconsin. And Doug Upstone, he likes the Tennessee Volunteers on the road, minus 6.5 over Mississippi State. Doug, final thoughts? Tell the people again about Doc Sports, what you're doing there, what might be coming up, and how you've been doing again of late.
Sure. Now, I like your pick with Penn State there, and I think one key element that the odds makers are telling us in this game is that the talent level is the same. Wisconsin's not better than Penn State. So that's the number one thing that we're being told, plus all the other stuff that, the positive numbers that you have at Penn State. So that makes a lot of sense to me as well on that one. So as far as, like I said, I've been on a red hot run, 24-7 the last 8 days, looking to keep that, continue to go. Included in that is 4-0 and 6-1 in college basketball. So hitting some good numbers now, especially with conference play. And that's really important to get you in line to set up to have a great February and March, when we know how important the ability to win is for not only bettors, but then also for the teams themselves. NBA, finally got done out of my pushes. I started winning games, instead of pushing them. So got some good stuff going that direction. Hockey continues to do well. I lost on Sunday, I had a 7-0 streak going into that game last night. Hey, nothing lasts forever in terms of that stuff. So you know what? I'm just doing the job right now, plain and simple. Okay. Yeah. And as I told the Ross, you know what? A lot of it some of this can just have to do with attitude. Okay. And I am the first to admit my attitude has been altered by me. Okay. And the results are proving that to be the case. And when you do this 365 days a year, basically, you're going to have some not so great moments in terms of attitude. So I decided to change it around, and the results are forthcoming. So looking to keep it going each and every day, upcoming and NFL, we'll talk more about that, some of that on Thursday with the NFL, but 2-0 start. And I got something going on Monday night with that game too. So, hey, I'm excited. I'm really excited. I mean, I'm normally excited, Ross. You know that, but I'm even more excited right now. So how about you, Ross? I know you had a great weekend yourself. What do you got coming up, and what's been going on?
Yeah, 6-1, 3-1 in college basketball on Saturday. One NFL pick in the playoffs. Cashed it in with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Had it all the way, Doug. And then on Sunday, just a 1-1. I lose with Buffalo, but I came back with the Minnesota and Giants game over the total of 48. Nice winner there. So it now makes me 31-19 with my last 50 in all sports. I'm on a 62% run. If you go back even further, 102-79 with my last 101 picks in all sports. Dime bettors have made over 14 grand during that time. My football picks, college football, NFL combined, 40-25 with my last 65, good for 62%. And if you get this video on time, because we're recording late Monday afternoon, I do have a 10-star top play in the NFL playoffs tonight in the game between the Cowboys and Bucks. It's a winning side. In my NFL 10-star top plays, 14-6 this year, good for 70%, and 24-11 dating back to last year with my last 35 NFL 10-star top plays, actually going back to 2020, as a matter of fact. And that's good for 69%. When you're that good over that long a period of time and you isolate that one game a week, that speaks volumes, and it should speak volumes to you as well. So again, Doug, things are going well, and they're going well for you. You can get Doug's premium paid selections. Remember, folks, this is how we make our living. We're doing the best to educate you in the world of sports betting, not just giving you free picks. Sure, we want to win these free picks, but Business 101 would tell you, even though I did give out a free pick as my paid selection, 99% of the time, we're not going to be giving you something free that we sell, because we deem that to be either number one, that's the games we bet on the most, or number two, our best picks, period. So DocSports.com for Doug, RBWins.com for Ross Benjamin. I'll be back tomorrow. Me and Sean Higgs will be talking NFL, we got 2 NFL playoff selections for you free. It goes on the games that will be played on Saturday. Until then, folks, good luck, God bless, and take care.